He woke to the sound of his own breathing, heavy and uneven. His eyes opened slowly. And the light was strange. The sky above him was not blue, but a soft green, and two suns were shining high. One was bright white, the other a pale gold. Their light mixed together and gave the world an unreal glow. He was lying on soft grass, but the grass was glowing faintly. Each blade gave off a light like tiny fireflies. He pushed himself up, his body aching. His suit was torn and dust-covered. His hands, he could not remember how he got here. His head throbbed when he tried to think. Around him was a forest, but not like any forest he knew. The trees were tall and smooth. Their trunks shining like glass, strange vines hung down, moving gently as if they could feel in the distance. Something called out a sound between a bird's cry and a deep horn. He did not know if it was near or far. He stood slowly, testing. His legs, his boots sank a little into the glowing ground, and small lights scattered like disturbed stars. He turned in a slow circle, trying to find any sign of people, but there was nothing, no road, no building, no smoke in the sky. Then he heard it, soft footsteps behind him, moving fast but light. His body tensed, his hands curled into fists. He turned sharply, ready for something. She stood there. Her skin was pale like moonlight, and her hair fell in silver waves. Her eyes stopped him from speaking. They were large and bright, a mix of silver and pale blue, but they seemed to look through him, not at him. It felt like she could see his thoughts, his memories, even his fears. Neither of them spoke at first. The wind moved between them, carrying a smell of flowers and something sharp. Like metal, her head tilted slightly, studying his face as if comparing it to something she remembered. Where am I?" he asked, his voice rough. She did not answer. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Her gaze stayed locked on his. It made him feel exposed. Like every secret he had was being pulled into the open. He took a step toward her. She took a step back, not in fear, but in control. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but clear. "You are not from here." Before he could ask more, a sound ripped through the forest, a deep growl. Low and rumbling, the ground under his feet trembled slightly. Her eyes flicked to the shadows beyond the trees, and for the first time, he saw fear in them. She moved quickly, crossing the space between them. Her hand grabbed his arm. Her grip was strong, far stronger than he expected from someone her size. She leaned close, her voice barely a whisper. "Run." He hesitated, but she pulled hard. Forcing him into motion, they darted between the glowing trees, the light of the grass blurring under their feet. The growl came again, louder this time, followed by heavy steps crashing through the undergrowth. "What is it?" he asked, breathless. "Don't look," she said, her voice sharp. "Just run." The forest seemed endless, twisting paths and glowing vines closing in from all sides. Strange floating shapes drifted between the trees, pulsing with light as they passed. He could hear whatever chased them. Its breathing was heavy, wet, and wrong, like something built to kill. Suddenly, the ground fell away. A cliff dropped down into darkness. The girl didn't stop. She pulled him forward, and before he could resist, they jumped. They plunged into cold water that glowed faintly blue. The shock took his breath, but the girl pulled him under a giant root that stretched over the water. They stayed there, still, silent. The sound of the hunter above was close, so close he could hear it sniffing the air. Through the gaps between the root and the cliff, he saw its shadow, long limbs, a hunched body, and eyes that burned red in the strange light. It paused, as if listening. The girl's hand stayed on his arm, holding him still. He could feel her heart beat fast but steady. Finally, the sound of its steps moved away. The girl let go and surfaced, pulling in a slow breath. He followed, coughing softly. They stayed in the water, hidden in the root's shadow. She looked at him again, her gaze calm now. "You're not from here," she repeated. "And yet, you smell of our sky?" He didn't understand. But something in her tone made him feel that his arrival here was not an accident. The girl moved through the water with silent speed. Her silver hair floated behind her like a stream of light. She reached the shore and pulled herself out, never looking back to see if he followed. But he did, climbing up beside her, dripping and cold. She didn't give him time to rest. The moment his feet touched the glowing ground, she grabbed his wrist again and pulled him into the forest. Her steps were quick but light, barely disturbing the strange plants around them. He stumbled once, almost falling, but her grip kept him steady. He wanted answers. But the growl in the distance reminded him there was no time. Still, questions burned. In his mind, who are you? What was that thing? Where are we? She glanced over her shoulder, but didn't slow down. Questions later, she said softly. If it finds us, there will be no later. The forest was alive. The trees shifted slightly, their glassy trunks bending as though following their movements. Small creatures like living lanterns floated between branches, blinking in patterns that almost looked like messages. Every step took them deeper, the light from the twin suns fading as the canopy thickened behind them. The sound came again, not just a growl this time, but the crash of something tearing through the forest. The ground shook with each step. He looked back, but all he saw was darkness between the glowing trees. Suddenly, she stopped, her head tilted, listening. Then she took a sharp turn to the left, leading him through a narrow gap between two massive roots. The air here was cooler, filled with the scent of damp earth and something sweet. They reached a stream, its water glowing faintly. She knelt and dipped her fingers in, then touched them. To her lips, she motioned for him to do the same. He hesitated, but his thirst won. The water was cold, crisp, and unlike anything he had tasted. It filled him with a strange energy. "Keep moving," she said, her voice almost urgent now. "It's close." They followed the stream for a while. Moving faster, he began to notice signs of something unnatural, deep claw marks in the trees. Chunks of glowing bark ripped away, and strange footprints pressed into the earth. They were long, with too many toes, and each step seemed to sink deep, as if the creature was incredibly heavy. "What is it?" he asked, his voice low. "A guardian," she replied. "It hunts anything that doesn't belong. Like me," he said, more to himself than to her. She didn't answer, which told him enough. The sound behind them grew louder. The guardian was closing in. She led him up a slope where the forest thinned, and the glowing plants gave way to dark stone. The air here was drier, carrying a faint metallic taste. At the top of the slope, they stopped. Before them was a deep ravine, a crack in the earth so wide he couldn't see the other side. The girl looked around quickly, then began to climb down. The rocky edge, she moved with a grace that made it look easy. He followed carefully, the rocks crumbling under his boots. Halfway down, a roar split the air. He froze, looking up. The guardian had reached the edge. Its silhouette loomed against the green sky, and even from this distance, he could see its burning red eyes. "Don't stop," she hissed. They reached the bottom and found themselves in a narrow passage between high rock walls. The ground was soft with glowing moss. Their footsteps made almost no sound, but the roars from above echoed off the walls. The girl led him through winding turns until the passage opened into a hidden glade. Here, the ground was covered in silver flowers, each one glowing faintly in the dim light. At the center was a pool of water, so still it looked like glass. "This is a safe place," she said, her voice softer now. For a while, he looked around, breathing hard. "I think I deserve some answers now." She met his eyes, and again he felt that strange sensation, like she could see into him. "You are not from this world," she said, "but you were brought here for a reason. the sky chose you. He frowned. The sky? She stepped closer, her voice low. There is something in you, something the guardians fear. That is why it hunts you. That is why I must keep you alive. Before he could reply, the ground trembled again. A shadow passed over the glade, darkening. The silver flowers. She looked up sharply, her hand going to a small blade at her side. It found us, she whispered. The shadow above them lingered for a moment, then moved away. The tremble in the ground faded, leaving only the sound of the glowing pool's gentle ripples. He looked at the girl, her silver eyes fixed on the sky as if listening to something. Only she could hear. Finally, she relaxed her shoulders and let out a slow breath. It's gone, for now, she said, but her voice carried no relief. He stepped closer, still catching his breath. You keep saying I'm not from here, he said. I know that, but how do you know? Her gaze shifted to him, and that strange, piercing look returned. It was as if she wasn't just looking at him, but through him, peeling away layers of thought and memory. I can see it, she replied simply. It's in your soul, the patterns. In your mind, the way your heart moves, none of it belongs to this world. He blinked, unsure if she was speaking in riddles or telling the truth. And who exactly are you? He asked. She walked to the edge of the glowing pool and knelt. Her reflection shimmered on the water's surface. My name is not for open air. She said, names have power here. If the wrong ears hear it, they can bind you, hurt you. He frowned. So you won't tell me? She looked over her shoulder and gave the smallest of smiles. Not yet. The air in the glade shifted. A gentle wind, carrying the scent of the silver flowers. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful, but then he saw the way her hand rested near. The blade at her hip, as if she never truly relaxed. This place, he said, gesturing to the glowing pool and the flowers. Why is it safe? The guardians don't come here, she replied. The water hides your scent. The flowers confuse their senses, but it's not just them. Other hunters would pay much for a skyborn. He tilted his head. You keep calling me that skyborn? What does it mean? She stood and faced him, her eyes brighter in the dim light. Long ago, the sky sent people like you, she said. They changed the balance of our world, some for good, some for ruin. The guardians were made to stop them before they awakened. Their power, and you think I'm one of them, he said slowly. I know you are. She replied without hesitation. He let out a short laugh, though there was no humor in it. I'm just a man who woke up in the wrong place. Her voice sharpened. You're more than that. I saw it when I looked into you. He met her gaze, trying to decide if she was insane or if she truly believed what she was saying. But deep inside, he couldn't deny the strange changes he had felt since waking. Hear the sharpness in his senses, the strength in his body, the way the glowing plants seemed to respond to his presence. A faint rumble passed through the ground, not as strong as before, but enough to remind them the guardian was still somewhere nearby. She looked toward the forest edge, her jaw tight. We don't have much time, she turned back to him. If you are skyborn, then someone brought you here on purpose. And if that someone finds you before we know why, you will be dead or worse. Worse. He asked. They will use you, she said, her tone heavy. Your kind has power we cannot make, only take. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft hum of the glowing flowers. He noticed her eyes glimmered faintly in the dark, reflecting the pool like polished silver. You risked your life for me, he said quietly. Why? Her answer was simple. Because the last skyborn I saw was killed before I could save him. There was weight in her words, something personal, something painful. He didn't push her for more. Not yet. She walked past him, toward a narrow path leading out of the glade. We can't stay here. The longer we remain, the more time we give the hunters to close in. He followed, his mind full of questions, but his body moving on instinct. The path wound through thick roots and over glowing stones. The deeper they went, the darker it became. Until the only light came from the plants and her eyes ahead of him. After a long silence, she finally spoke again. "When the time comes, you'll have to choose. Either you find a way back to your world, or you stay and fight for this one." Before he could answer, the path opened into a vast cavern, and his breath caught. The walls were lined with crystals that pulsed like beating hearts, casting moving shadows across the rock. In the center, on a stone platform, lay an object covered in strange markings. She looked back at him, her voice low. "This is why I found you." The cavern felt alive. The walls seemed to breathe with a faint light, each pulse of the crystals casting long shadows that moved. Across the floor, the object on the stone platform was unlike anything he had seen. It was shaped like a blade, but wider, the surface covered in moving symbols that glowed faintly. He stepped closer, drawn to it without thinking. The moment he got near, the symbols shifted. Rearranging themselves, the glow grew brighter, and he felt warmth spreading through his hands even though he hadn't touched it. "What is this?" he asked, his voice quiet. "It's older than the Guardians," the girl replied. "It's older than my people. Some say it's a gift from the sky. Others say it's a curse." Before he could ask more, a sound echoed through the cavern, sharp and metallic. It was the sound of something hitting stone. Followed by many footsteps, her head snapped toward the entrance. Her hand went to her blade instantly. "They found us," from the shadows. Figures emerged, tall, armored in bone and dark metal. Their faces were hidden behind masks shaped like beasts. The faint glow from the crystals reflected off the sharp edges of their weapons. There were at least 10 of them, moving in perfect silence. In seconds, they formed a circle around the two, cutting off every path of escape. One stepped forward, his mask carved into the shape of a snarling predator. "You," he said in a deep voice, pointing his weapon at the girl. "Traitor." She didn't flinch. "I'm no traitor," she replied sharply. "I protect what the sky has sent." The warrior's gaze shifted to the man. His eyes narrowed behind the mask. "An outsider," he said, the word heavy with disgust. "He will come with us, alive or dead." 2 of them stepped forward, chains in their hands. He moved back, his muscles tensing, but before he could act, the girl stepped in front of him. Her voice was steady but fierce. "You will not touch him." Her defiance only made them move faster. The warriors rushed in, and in moments, rough hands grabbed his arms, cold metal closed around his wrists. The girl fought, her blade flashing in the crystal light, but she was outnumbered. They took her weapon and forced her to her knees. A warrior kicked the back of his legs, forcing him down beside her. Chains rattled as they locked his wrists behind his back. As they were dragged toward the cavern exit, he glanced at the platform. The strange blade was still glowing, the symbols shifting again. He didn't know why, but it felt like it was reacting to him. The warriors pushed them out into the night air. The twin suns had moved lower, casting the forest in long shadows. The path was rough, lined with jagged rocks. Their captors forced them to walk fast, pulling them forward whenever they stumbled. After hours, the forest gave way to something unexpected, a massive stone wall built into the side of a mountain. Towers rose high above it, lit with the same kind of glowing crystals from the cavern. The gates opened with a low groan, and they were taken inside. The city was carved directly into the mountain's rock. Homes, markets, and towering statues were all part of the stone itself. The air smelled of smoke and metal, and everywhere armored warriors walked the streets. They were taken down into the lower levels, the air growing colder and damp. The sound of water dripping echoed in the stone halls. Finally, they were thrown into a cell lit by a single dim crystal. The door slammed shut, and the sound of the lock echoed like a final warning. He sat against the wall, catching his breath. The girl was across from him, her eyes half closed, but he could tell she was still listening to every sound. After a long silence, a voice came from the darkness in the corner of the cell. "You are the Skyborn." He turned and saw an old alien sitting on the floor. His face lined with age. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "If she looked into your soul," the old one said, nodding toward the girl, "then she has chosen." "You chosen me for what?" he asked. The old one smiled faintly. "To change the fate of worlds." The words hung in the air like a heavy weight. He didn't understand them fully, but something deep inside told him they were true. The cell was cold. The stone walls seemed to breathe out a damp chill that settled into his bones. He sat in the shadows, listening to the faint sounds beyond the bar's footsteps above. Chains rattling somewhere down the hall, a distant drip of water. The girl sat across from him, her back straight, eyes half closed. She hadn't spoken since they were thrown inside. He wondered if she was thinking of a way out, or simply conserving her strength. The old alien in the corner had not moved either, but his glowing eyes stayed fixed on the man. "Skyborn," the old one said again, his voice like dry leaves. "They will not keep you alive for long. You are dangerous to them." The girl finally opened her eyes. "They will keep him alive until the council decides," she said. "But once they do, it will be execution." He leaned forward. "Then, we need to get out before that." She looked at him for a long moment, her silver gaze unblinking. Then she said, "There is a way, but it will cost." Before he could ask what she meant, a sound drifted through the hall, soft and strange. It was almost like humming a low tune that seemed to vibrate in the air. He realized it was coming from her. Her lips barely moved, but the sound wrapped around the cell like smoke. The old alien straightened, his eyes wide. "Songcraft," he whispered. The humming grew, and then the metal lock on their cell clicked softly. He stared at it in disbelief. The girl stood, her face calm. "Move quietly," she said. She pushed the door open, and the hall outside was dim, lit only by weak crystal lamps fixed to the walls. The air smelled of rust and stone. She led them forward, her steps silent against the cold floor. The old alien stayed behind, shaking his head. "My part in this story has ended," he said, and faded back into the shadows. They moved through twisting corridors. The silence of the prison was broken only by distant voices. Twice, they had to duck into alcoves to avoid patrolling guards. Each time, the girl seemed to sense them before they appeared. "How do you know where to go?" he whispered. She glanced back at him. "I know these tunnels better than they do. I was raised here." That answer raised more questions, but there was no time. The sound of boots echoed from ahead. She pressed him against the wall, holding her hand to his chest. Her eyes narrowed, two of them. She whispered, "We can't fight." "Not yet." They waited. The guards passed, talking in low voices about the council's orders. The word Skyborn was mentioned, followed by execution, and before sunrise, his jaw tightened. He didn't know what power the girl believed he had, but he knew he had no intention of dying here. When the guards were gone, they slipped forward again. Finally, the hall opened into a wide chamber filled with old storage crates and broken weapons. A single ladder led upward into darkness. "This leads to the old market tunnels," she said. "From there, we can reach the city's outer edge." They climbed, the rungs creaking under their weight. At the top, she pushed open a heavy grate. The air that rushed in was warmer. Carrying the scent of smoke and cooked food, they emerged into a narrow alley. The stone walls towering high on both sides. The distant sounds of the city drifted too. The market stalls calling, animals braying, the faint clang of metal. "Stay close," she said, wrapping her cloak around him to hide his torn suit. They moved through winding back streets. staying in shadow whenever they could. At one point, they passed an open square where a group of warriors were speaking to the crowd, holding up a crude drawing that looked suspiciously like him. "They're looking for you already," she murmured. They slipped into another alley. But before they could reach the end, a figure stepped out to block their path. He wore the same bone armor as the others, but no mask. His face was marked with long scars, and his eyes burned with recognition. "You," he said, his voice low. The Skyborn, the girl, stepped between them, her blade drawn. "Move aside," she said. He smirked. "I don't think so," and reached for a horn at his belt before he could blow it. The man acted on instinct. His hand shot forward, grabbing the warrior's arm. A strange strength surged through him, far beyond what he should have had. With one twist, he sent the horn clattering to the ground. The warrior's eyes widened, and for the first time, he looked afraid. The girl moved fast, striking the man in the side of the head with the flat of her blade. He crumpled, unconscious. She looked at him sharply. That strength you've started to awaken. He didn't know what to say. His heart was pounding, and his hands still tingled with the strange energy. "We need to go, now," she said. They ran through the last of the alleys until the buildings began to thin. Ahead, he could see the jagged line of the city wall. Beyond it was the open land and freedom. But the sound of shouting behind them meant the hunt had already begun again. The city wall loomed ahead, tall and black against the green sky. The girl led him toward a narrow archway at the base, half hidden by a leaning tower of stone. Her steps were quick, her eyes scanning every shadow. Shouts echoed behind them, growing louder. The clatter of boots and the metallic ring of weapons hitting armor carried through the air. The guards were closing in. "This way," she whispered, pulling him into the archway. Inside, a dark tunnel sloped downward. The air was damp, smelling of moss and cold stone. Their footsteps splashed through shallow water. As they moved, a faint vibration began to hum under his skin. It started in his chest, spreading to his arms. His vision sharpened, and every sound seemed louder, clearer. The girl glanced at him briefly, as if sensing the change, but didn't speak. Halfway down the tunnel, a deep, guttural roar froze them in place. It was the same sound he had heard in the forest when they first met. "The Guardian," she turned to him, her voice urgent. "It's found us. If it catches us here, we can't run." The roar came again, this time closer, echoing through the tunnel walls. The sound of claws scraping stone followed. They broke into a run, splashing through the water. The tunnel curved sharply and opened into a wide chamber. Crumbling pillars rose from the ground, and the far end was a jagged opening leading out to the wildlands beyond the city. Freedom was right there, but the Guardian's massive shape blocked the way. Its long limbs moved with unnatural speed, its burning red eyes fixed on them. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of metallic teeth. "It won't let us pass," she said, stepping forward, blade ready. He moved beside her before he could stop himself. "Then we fight." The Guardian lunged. Its clawed hand swiped through the air. The girl ducked low and rolled aside, slashing at its leg. Sparks flew where her blade struck, but the creature didn't slow. It turned on him, its massive form towering above. He felt that strange power surge again. His hands clenched, and without thinking, he met its strike head-on. The impact sent a shockwave through the chamber, cracking the nearest pillar. He stumbled, but didn't fall. The Guardian roared, swinging again. This time, he caught its arm, muscles burning with energy. With a twist and a shout, he threw it back several steps. The girl's eyes widened. "Your strength, it's growing." The Guardian recovered fast, charging at them both. They moved together, her blade flashing, his fists striking with unnatural force. Each hit seemed to draw more of that strange energy out of him. The glowing moss on the walls brightened each time he struck, as if reacting to him, but the guardian was relentless. Its claws tore through stone. Its teeth snapped inches from his face. He could feel his strength starting to fade. The girl darted. In behind it, slashing deep at the back of its legs, the creature roared in pain. Staggering forward, he took the chance, driving his shoulder into its chest and forcing it toward the jagged opening. The guardian clawed at him, leaving shallow cuts across his arm. But he didn't stop. With one last surge, he pushed. The creature tumbled through the opening, crashing down into the rocky slope outside. It lay still for a moment, then slowly began to rise again. "No," the girl whispered, "it's not dead." The guardian's red eyes locked on them once more, but before it could move, a sudden rumble shook the ground. The cliff beneath it cracked, and with a thunderous crash, the rock gave way. The creature fell into the misty abyss below, its roar fading into silence. He stood there, breathing hard, his hands shaking from the energy still coursing through him. The girl stepped to his side, her expression unreadable. "You've done what no one has in my lifetime," she said. "You forced a guardian to retreat." He looked down at his hands, still trembling. "I don't even know how." "You will," she said, turning toward the opening. "But we have to leave before more come." They stepped out into the wildlands. The air was fresher here, filled with the scent of grass and strange flowers. The twin suns hung low, painting the horizon in green and gold for the first time since he woke in this world. He felt a strange sense of freedom, but it was brief behind them. The city's alarm bells began to ring. "They'll hunt us," she said, looking at him. "From this moment on, we are the prey." He met her gaze, feeling the weight of her words. "Then we'd better make sure we're hard to catch." The wild land stretched endlessly before them, rolling hills of tall silver grass swaying under the green light of the twin suns. The air was quiet, except for the distant cry of strange winged creatures drifting across the sky, each step away. From the city felt like another piece of the weight on his shoulders lifting, yet the sound of the alarm bells still echoed in his mind. The girl moved quickly, weaving between the tall grass. Her silver hair caught the sunlight, making her look almost like she was part of this world itself. He kept pace, his thoughts heavy. Every time he glanced at her, he remembered the moment she had stood between him and the warriors. Without hesitation, "Where are we going?" He asked finally. "There's a place the hunters can't reach easily," she said. "A cliff fortress built long before my people. It will give us time." And then he pressed. She didn't answer right away. Her gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. "Then we find why you were brought here. Because if we don't, this will never end." They traveled until the suns began to dip. The green sky turned darker. Streaked with gold, the temperature dropped and the wind picked up, carrying a low hum through the grass. It was then he noticed the cuts on his arm from the guardian's claws. The wounds glowed faintly. Not bleeding like they should, he lifted his arm, frowning. "What's happening to me?" She slowed, looking at the marks. Her expression was unreadable. "The guardian's touch doesn't kill you because you're skyborn," she said, "but it changes you. Awakening comes in many ways that doesn't sound like something I should be happy about," he muttered. Her voice softened. "Power is dangerous here, but it's also the only thing that can keep you alive." They reached the edge of a deep ravine. The only way across was a fallen stone bridge, half broken and unstable. She tested it first, moving light on her feet. He followed, every step sending small chunks of rock tumbling into the darkness below. On the other side, the land rose sharply toward a cliff wall. At its base was a narrow entrance hidden by thick vines. She pulled them aside, revealing a dark tunnel. "We'll rest here," she said. Inside, the tunnel opened into a wide cave. Lit by patches of glowing moss, it was warmer here. The sound of wind muffled by stone, he sat against the wall. Finally letting exhaustion catch him, she knelt by a small pool in the corner, filling a stone cup with water and handing it to him. "You saved me more than once today," he said quietly. "I don't think I've thanked you." She looked at him for a moment, then gave a faint smile. "You didn't need to. I chose this path." "Why?" he asked. "You barely knew me when you risked your life to protect me." Her gaze held his, silver eyes steady. "Because I looked into you and saw someone who would fight for more than himself, the last Skyborn I saw." He only thought of his own survival. He didn't make it far. Something in her voice made him realize this wasn't just about him. She had lost someone before, and she wasn't going to let it happen again. They sat in silence for a while. The sound of the wind outside was softer now, and for a moment, it almost felt like the danger had passed. But then, faint at first, came the distant howl of a horn. His head snapped toward the cave entrance. The girl's face tightened. "They're still hunting," he stood, feeling the strange strength in his body again. "Then let them come." She shook her head. "Not yet. You're not ready." "But you will be." She walked to the entrance, looking out into the wildlands. "We have a long road ahead, Skyborn, and it will be filled with enemies. But if you survive, you will change the fate of this world." He joined her, standing beside her at the mouth of the cave. The twin suns hung low, casting long shadows over the grasslands. Somewhere beyond that horizon was the truth about why he was here, what he was meant to do, and why she had chosen him. For now, that was enough. He glanced at her, and for the first time since waking in this strange world, he felt like he wasn't facing it alone. Her silver eyes met his, and in them, he saw not just a guide, but something far stronger, a bond neither of them had asked for, but both were now bound. "2. We start at dawn," she said, her voice calm but firm. He nodded. "Together."